What if the most fortified hiding place on Earth turned out to be the easiest target on the map? For decades, Iran buried its most dangerous weapons under mountains, deep inside reinforced concrete, certain that no one on the planet could reach them. Then, a single bomb proved them wrong, and the fire has not stopped raining for 13 straight nights. Before we go any further, smash that like button, tap subscribe with the bell on, and share this with one friend who still thinks bunker depth equals safety. It takes 5 seconds, and it means everything to a channel that breaks down stories exactly like this one. Here is what is happening, and it is stranger than anything you will read in a briefing paper. For roughly 2 weeks, American bombers have been turning Iran's mountain hideouts into skylights. Stockpiles of ballistic missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles, drone storage facilities, naval assets, ammunition depots. Every one of them hit night after night after night. Open source reports place the number around 300 targets struck in the first 3 days alone, with close to 140 hit during a single overnight package. Islands scattered across the Strait of Hormuz, coastal defense positions on Greater Tom, hardened bunkers along the Hormuz shoreline. Every location Iran spent decades building, with a quiet belief that depth equals safety, has been opened up from the air. The footage is haunting. You see a roof, a flash deep inside, then a fireball punching upward. And that fireball is every missile, every crate of ordnance, every drone Iran thought was untouchable, going up through the concrete in one single moment. The bomb went off a second and a half earlier. Somewhere down under the surface, the explosion is the inventory itself being destroyed. To understand why Iran is suddenly so exposed, you have to understand what it tried to hide and what finally reached it. Iran spent the better part of a generation building the most aggressive buried arsenal in the Middle East. Ballistic missile production halls sunk under coastal mountains, drone storage facilities carved into cliff faces along the Persian Gulf, command centers buried beneath schoolyards, mosques, and civilian infrastructure. The entire logic was simple. If the United States ever came calling, the most valuable weapons would be the ones you cannot see. Bury deep, pour concrete, line the entrance with camouflage, and assume that no weapon in the American inventory can punch through. For most of the last 20 years, that logic held. America had precision, but it did not have penetrators big enough to make a buried target regret being buried. The GBU-28, the Cold War classic, was designed for Yugoslav command bunkers and Iraqi aircraft shelters. It was good, but not good enough for the kind of construction Iran had been investing in. The only real answer was the GBU-57, Massive Ordnance Penetrator, a 30,000-pound monster that only the B-2 Spirit can carry, and there are only 19 of those in the entire American fleet. So when Iran built it, built with confidence, the math seemed to favor the defender. Then this year, that math collapsed. The weapon doing the collapsing is the one everyone has been quietly waiting for. The GBU-72 Advanced 5K Penetrator, roughly 5,000 pounds of hardened steel carrying about 1,600 pounds of high-performance explosive guided by GPS and inertial navigation, smart-fused and entering combat for the first time ever in history. It is the smaller sibling of the legendary GBU-57, but the GBU-72 fits on a fighter jet. That single difference changes everything about a campaign like this one. It makes the weapon portable. It makes the weapon repeatable. And in a campaign that has hit more than 300 targets and shows no sign of slowing, repeatability is the entire ballgame. Out of every aircraft in the entire United States arsenal, exactly 2 are clear to drop this thing. The B-1B Lancer and the F-15E Strike Eagle. That is the VIP list, and it is a very short VIP list. Now think about what that means operationally. Every other bomb on the ramp needs a flight, a launch platform, an ingress route, an escape corridor, and a tanker stage somewhere. The GBU-72 takes all of that friction and compresses it into a single drop from a single fast mover. A B-1 can carry dozens in one sort. An F-115E can carry several and still have hardpoints left. For the GBU-31 and other supporting weapons, the flexibility is the value. The bunker buster is no longer a once-a-year strategic asset reserved for the deepest single target. It is now a tactical tool used nightly for multiple airframes across an entire country. Let me walk you through the mission as it actually happens in the air, before any bomber reaches Iranian airspace. The route in has to be torn open. Iran's air defense belt is layered. Long-range surveillance radars, surface-to-air missile batteries, interceptor aircraft, and a growing network of Russian-supplied systems that became operational over the last several years. So, the mission sequence starts with stealth aircraft. F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightning IIs go in first. Their job is not to drop bombs. Their job is to disappear from the radar picture long enough to light up the enemy air defenses, jam their communications, and erase their situational awareness. Right behind them come EA-18G Growlers, electronic attack aircraft that turn an enemy radar screen into static noise and leave defenders shooting at ghosts. Only after that window opens do the bombers roll in. And inside the bombers, the bomb of choice depends on the target. For hardened bunkers, the kind Iran built specifically to survive a United States airstrike, the GBU-72 is the answer. 5,000 pounds of steel designed to fall at terminal velocity, slam through reinforced concrete, and detonate inside the cavity rather than on top of it. The kill mechanism is overpressure and fragmentation inside a sealed space, not a blast radius out in the open. That is why the footage looks the way it does. The bomb does not explode upward. It explodes downward, deep inside, in the roof. Here's what comes off like a manhole cover. Alongside the GBU-72 rides the GBU-31, a 2,000-pound JD dam built around the BLU-109 penetrator warhead. Less dramatic than the bunker buster, but cheaper, easier to carry, and perfectly suited for targets that are buried but not buried deep. Missile production halls, underground command centers, mobile launcher shelters, tunnels with light cover. The GBU-31 is the workhorse. When Air Force budget documents say the GBU-72 achieves the same effect with fewer weapons at lower cost per round, that is exactly what they mean. One GBU-72 can do the work of 2 or 3 GBU-31s on the right target. Multiply that across 300 strikes, and the savings start to look like a second campaign on top of the first. Now, think about the math for a moment. 300 targets, 13 nights, half of Iran's ballistic missile stockpile gone in roughly 240 hours of combat. Reports indicate that somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 ballistic missiles still sit in silos, caves, and tunnels across the country. That sounds like a lot until you remember the number used to be closer to 3,500. The bombers have eaten roughly half of the country's strategic weaponry without setting foot on Iranian soil, without committing a single infantry soldier, and without paying the casualty bill a ground invasion would have demanded. That is the strategic value of the GBU-72. It is not just a weapon. It is a force multiplier that has collapsed Iran's deterrence architecture in real time. Quick pause here. If you have made it this far, you are clearly someone who pays attention to what is actually happening in the world, instead of what cable news tells you is happening. Tap that like button right now. Ring the bell so you get the next breakdown the moment I drop it. And drop a comment with the country you think is going to make the next big move. I read every single one of them, and the comment section has quietly become one of my favorite places on the entire internet. Now, let me show you the platform doing most of the heavy lifting. The B-1B Lancer is an aircraft that almost did not exist as a conventional bomber. 4 afterburning engines, variable geometry swing wings designed in the 1970s to slip through Soviet air defenses at low altitude and deliver nuclear payloads deep inside enemy territory. The Cold War mission evaporated. What was left behind in the post-Cold War inventory was something different. The largest conventional payload of any bomber in America. 75,000 pounds internal plus external pylons that can push the figure higher. Each sortie can deliver more ordnance than several fighter jets combined. In the opening hours of this campaign, 3 Lancers flew what military planners call a conus-to-conus mission, taking off from the continental United States, crossing the Atlantic, crossing the Mediterranean, hitting the targets, and flying all the way home. No foreign basing required. Multiple aerial refuelings carried the load. The message was unmistakable. America can reach deep inside Iran from its own soil without asking permission from a single allied capital. Then the script flipped. A single Iranian drone got a little too close to a Royal Air Force base in Cyprus. Suddenly, the United Kingdom found religion about opening the doors at RAF Fairford. The B-1 fleet began rotating out of England, dramatically shortening the flight time, multiplying the sortie rate, and quietly doubling the punch per night of the entire air campaign. The British do not need a drone scare to remember who their closest ally is, but apparently it helped. Here's the part nobody is talking about. The B-2 Spirit is the scalpel. America owns 19 of them. They are expensive, low availability, and reserved for the deepest, most sensitive single targets. The GBU-57, the biggest bunker buster ever built, only flies under the B-2. But the B-1 fleet is the sledgehammer. 45 airframes, 200% of the conventional tonnage per sortie of the B-2, and unclear runway requirements. The B-2 opens the lock on the most protected targets. The B-1 opens every other door in the country. Together with the GBU-72 and the GBU-31, they have rewritten the rules of what an air campaign against a buried arsenal looks like. Let that sink in. 13 nights, 300 targets, an entire leg of a regional power's deterrence erased in less time than most people spend on summer vacation. And the casualty count on the American side is essentially 0. That is the strategic miracle of a properly executed bunker buster campaign. The math does the work that manpower used to do. Now, the diplomatic story did not end with the strikes. It began with them. After 13 consecutive nights of combat operations, the bombs just stopped. Thursday, at 9 p.m. Eastern, the last due strike package landed. Friday night, for the first time in 2 weeks, U.S. Central Command posted nothing about new operations. Saturday morning, the silence was still there. The reason was not mechanical. Nothing broke, no aircraft went down, no munition supply dried up. The reason was diplomatic. A channel had reopened. Tron, watching its stockpiles burn on satellite imagery every single night, had begun talking again. Not because it was ready to talk, because it had nothing left to bargain with except the pause itself. The line out of Washington was unmistakable. The president said it plainly. We are talking to them right now. They're getting more and more serious as the days go by. We're locked and loaded and ready to go, but we are talking to them. He added that the campaign could continue or could scale up further if diplomacy failed. The White House communications director put it on the record the same day. The Pentagon backed it within hours. Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell confirmed that multiple successful operations had been executed while the United States retained a deep arsenal of capabilities. The unspoken message in that sentence was the list of weapons still available. 5,000-pound bunker busters are part of that arithmetic. So are the larger weapons still untouched. The GBU-57, the carrier-launched Tomahawk, every system that has not yet been used. The sequencing here is the lesson. Sanctions crippled the Iranian economy over months. 13 nights of strikes dismantled more of the military architecture. Only then did the offer to negotiate arrive, and it arrived from a position where the other side has nothing left to bargain with. That is how you end a war before it becomes a war. But here is what did not pause. Even with the bomb bays closed for 2 nights, the maritime blockade stayed fully active. American boarding teams, almost certainly Marine raider units, went over the rail of a Cameroon flag tanker in the Arabian Sea, inspected the cargo, then cleared it to continue. 12 vessels redirected in those first days of the pause. 2 disabled, 2 boarded, 2 nights of quiet on the strike front, and still a single barrel of Iranian oil could not move through the Strait of Hormuz. That silence at sea is every bit as important as the thunder in the air. The pressure is layered. Up top the bombs, down low the blockade, and inside the country an economy that is grinding to a halt faster than the regime will admit. That is not a negotiating position. That is an outcome being delivered in slow motion. Hey, real quick, if this kind of detailed strategic breakdown is what you live for, you are going to want to stick around. Becoming a member of this channel is the single best way to guarantee you never miss an upload. The join button is right below the video, and there is even a free trial if you want to test the waters first. Do it today before the next development drops, and you wish you had been part of the conversation from day one. And Iran, watching all of this, did what cornered actors always do. It escalated in the places it thought it still could. Reports surfaced that the IRGC claimed credit for an attack on another oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. But the official story quickly shifted to that tanker simply getting off course and hitting a mine. That is the script that gets replayed every time one of these vessels goes down. Underwater unmanned vehicles disguised as drifting mines. Drone boats skimming the surface and slamming the stern. The method is cheap. The footage is deniable, and the impact on global shipping is real. Insurance rates for the strait have already moved. Refiners in Asia have already hedged. Every time a tanker explodes, even if the cause is officially a mine, the world is reminded that the safest shipping lane on Earth is now the most dangerous one. That brings us to the global roundup, and this is where the picture gets uncomfortable. Romania shot down an unidentified drone in its territorial waters 12 kilometers northeast of a coastal town Sunday morning. It was the 3rd consecutive daily shoot-down by Romanian F-16s. Friday's engagement was particularly telling. 2 Italian Air Force Eurofighter Typhoons engaged first, missed, and Romanian F-16s out of the 86th Air Base finished the job with an air-to-air missile. The drone fell in a wheat field. The Romanian prosecutor's office later confirmed it was a Shahed-type munition. That is the same drone Iran flies. That is the same drone Russia has been manufacturing with Iran for years. Russia says it stopped that partnership. Sure. Then came the more serious claim. President Zelensky publicly stated that Russia has been helping Iran with targeting solutions, not just for ballistic missiles, but also for ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. That is the support that turns a stockpile into a launch sequence. Without targeting data, a missile is just a tube. With targeting data, it is a weapon. And the strategic logic is obvious to anyone paying attention. Russia benefits the moment the United States is forced to burn through Patriot interceptor missiles in the Persian Gulf. Every Patriot used against an Iranian missile as a Patriot not available to Ukraine. Every minute American planners spent staring at Iran is a minute not spent looking at Donbass. That is the trade Russia is making. That is the price of the partnership they keep denying. The munitions flowing one way, the targeting flowing the other way. And on both ends, a country that claims to want peace while sharpening someone else's sword. There's a second layer here that matters. Iran has now demonstrated the ability to launch attacks on U.S. bases across the region, bases in Jordan, bases in the Gulf partner states. The official Iranian spokesperson has claimed to have scored hits on multiple American aircraft and helicopters over the last 15 days. Most of those claims are exaggerated. Most of the incoming is intercepted, but some has gotten through. And the public casualty count from a strike on a forward operating base several weeks ago is a reminder that none of this is theoretical. American families are grieving right now. One last thing before we close this out. If you have made it to the end of this breakdown, you are officially in the top 1% of viewers who actually finish long-form analysis. That means something. Subscribe right now if you have not yet. And if a friend of yours only watches the headlines, send them this video. They will get more out of 12 minutes here than 12 weeks of cable chatter. Drop a comment with the answer to one question. Do you think the bombs will fly again next week, or will diplomacy actually hold this time? I want to see who in the comment section is reading the situation correctly. Now, close that loop and bring it home. Here is what is worth remembering when you close this tab. Iran buried its arsenal under mountains because someone in Tehran confused depth with safety. Mountains were never the obstacle. Mountains were the doorway. 5,000 pounds of American steel dropped from a B-1 at the right angle turns a fortress into a chimney in under 1 second. That is not a metaphor. That is the actual physics. The bomb penetrates, the cavity contains the blast. The roof fails upward because nothing left inside can resist the overpressure. 13 nights, 300 targets. An entire leg of a regional deterrent erased in less time than most tourists spend at a beach resort. The cost to America was measured in dollars and fuel, not in flag-draped coffins. The cost to Iran was measured in strategic capability, years of buried investment, and the slow realization that depth was never safety. Depth was just a delay before the door opened. But that is not even the deepest lesson. The deepest lesson is this. The same aircraft, the same bomb, the same airframe, the same crew can be aimed at any buried target on Earth tomorrow, the day after, or the day after that. The GBU-72 is portable. The targeting pods are mature. The stealth fighters that clear the path fly every day. The tanker fleet is already in the air. North Korea is watching this campaign with a calculator in one hand and a notebook in the other. Beijing is studying the footage. Moscow is reading the targeting data for its own reasons. Every bunker on the planet just got a little less safe. Every nation that ever thought concrete could replace strategy is now rethinking its math in real time. That is the second-order effect of 2 weeks of bunker buster strikes. The first-order effect is a weaker Iran. The second-order effect is a world that just realized what 5,000 pounds of steel in one well-placed drop can do. Stay sharp, stay informed. The mountain was never the problem. The mountain was never anything more than a door, and the new American arsenal just opened it. I will see you in the next.